Before we get into today's episode, I want to quickly share something with you that I'm really excited about. And it's something I've never done before. If driving anxiety has been holding you back, not because you don't know how to drive, but because you're afraid of feeling trapped, panicky, dizzy, or out of control once you're behind the wheel or riding as a passenger, I created something just for you. It's called Drive with Peace and Confidence, and it's a 5-day live experience with me where we focus on the real root of driving anxiety, the fear of panic, and that what if I can't escape feeling. All week, I'll be teaching you how to approach driving in a calm, supportive way, building confidence step by step without forcing yourself or white knuckling through it. We'll have live teachings, coaching, and a Q&A, so you're not doing this alone. And because this experience is live and interactive, spots will be limited. It starts on January 19th, and it's just $97. This is less than the cost of one therapy session. So, if driving anxiety has been running the show and you're ready to feel safer and more confidence behind the wheel, I'd love to support you. You can learn more at the link in the show notes. I'm Shannon Ireland, your host of a Healthy Push podcast. I struggled with anxiety, panic disorder, and agoraphobia for 15 years. Everything used to be hard for me. Even just driving 5 minutes from my house used to feel impossible. But now I absolutely live for travel and adventure, and I experience lots of peace and joy. I've not only reclaimed my life, but I've helped hundreds of others to do the same. Here, we stop managing anxiety and instead we create a healthy relationship with it. One where you say goodbye to the anxious thoughts, symptoms, panic attacks, and fears, and you actually live your life. Forget complicated strategies, quick fixes, or the same old hacks you've heard 100 times before. Each week, I'll bring you simple, actionable advice and honest conversations that lead to real, long-term healing. You aren't just an anxious person, my friend. There are reasons why you're struggling with anxiety, and these are things you can fix and heal from. And this is where that journey begins. Welcome. You're right where you're meant to be. Hello, and welcome back to a Healthy Push podcast. Today, I want to talk about agoraphobia, like what it really looks like and why so many people don't realize that they're struggling with it. You might already know I was diagnosed with severe panic disorder and agoraphobia when I was a teenager, and I went on to live with it for 15 years. And what's important to know is this: I was not housebound. I went to school, I graduated college, I worked, I ran errands, I went out with friends, I even traveled, I moved across country, I went on big trips. And yet, my life was still being quietly ruled by fear and conditions and invisible limits. So, if you've ever thought, this can't be agoraphobia because I still do things and even big things, I really want you to listen to this episode because agoraphobia isn't about never leaving your home or having trouble leaving your home. It's really about what your life slowly organizes itself around. So let's first start by talking about what agoraphobia actually is. So it is not about places, it's really about fear of the anxiety you might experience in those places or in different situations. Agoraphobia is really a disorder where you fear going places or doing things because of the anxiety you might experience there. For many people, that fear centers around having overwhelming panic, overwhelming anxiety, or feeling trapped in a situation where escape or help feels hard to access. So your brain starts asking, what if I panic here? What if I panic there? What if I can't handle it? What if it gets too overwhelming? What if it doesn't go away? What if I can't get out? You probably know all the what ifs, right? And over time, your world really starts shrinking. It doesn't happen overnight, it doesn't happen all at once, but it quietly starts to happen because this anxiety, this fear builds and builds, and you become even more scared, right? The fear just becomes so massive. I think this is often why people don't recognize themselves as struggling with agoraphobia because It does happen quietly and slowly, and your world slowly starts to shrink, but you don't often even notice it. You don't often notice how many restrictions and limitations you're placing on your life and how much you're depending on others or you're depending on things being just so. And so it does become hard to see, like, oh no, it's not just panic disorder. Like, there is something else in the mix here. So let's jump in now and talk about the signs of agoraphobia. Because once you start to have more awareness and you can maybe see, like, oh, I do that, or I have a tendency to do that, it helps you to really understand and have that awareness of your patterns and your behaviors. So, sign one is this avoidance that feels logical, like you're avoiding certain places or situations, not because you dislike them, but because you're afraid of having anxiety or a panic attack and not being able to cope. So this might look like avoiding things like stores, especially big stores, maybe going toward the back of the stores, highways, or maybe certain roads, maybe roads where you've experienced anxiety and panic in before, being alone, social events, anything that can feel hard to escape from. I know for myself, it was really hard for me to acknowledge that there was definitely avoidance because I was still going out and doing things, but I would definitely restrict and limit and try to manipulate things so that I hopefully didn't experience that overwhelming anxiety and panic. I think the real sneaky part with avoidance, right, is we're often telling ourselves these stories that we don't even really recognize. It's like, I'll go when I feel a little bit better. I just don't feel great right now. Or I just need a little bit more time. Or I'm just not ready yet. Or I don't even want to go. I don't even want to do that thing. But these stories, right, are just protection. Like you are trying to protect yourself because you don't want to experience anything that can be potentially too overwhelming. And the fear of feeling out of control really starts to create more and more rules. And those rules slowly start to limit and shrink your life. So, this first sign, avoidance, it's definitely a really big one. The next one is another big one. It's having safe zones. So often, when you're struggling with panic disorder and agoraphobia, you create safe zones. And my students know I really hate this term, safe zones or safe behaviors, because they're not really keeping you safe. They're just keeping you more comfortable, which is what we all lean toward when we're experiencing really uncomfortable stuff. But if you are creating some safe zones, this is a pretty good sign that agoraphobia is in the mix. So, some common safe zones are your home or close to your home. It can be a certain radius around your home. Like I'll go 10, 15 minutes or maybe even less around my home because you think, of course, as long as I'm close enough, if I do panic, if things do get out of control, I can get home fairly quickly. Or you may even have safe zones that are like familiar stores or routes, like you'll only drive certain roads or places. You'll only stick to certain places, like certain restaurants, coffee shops. You'll only go out with friends at certain places in certain situations. And the thing with safe zones is when you leave these areas, they can really bring intense anxiety. Like even a step outside of your safe zone, a half mile outside of your safe zone can cause those false alarms to go off and really intensify that fear and convince you, like, I got to go home, right? I got to get to safety. I've got to get somewhere where I'm not going to feel this way. And so returning to these safe zones often brings instant relief. It's almost like this, "Oh, thank goodness, right? Thank goodness I turned around. Thank goodness I got home. Thank goodness I got to X place," because you often do feel that like instant relief. And acknowledging that you have safe zones, that you've created these limitations and restrictions is really important because this is where your brain and your nervous system starts to learn inside this zone is safe and outside of this zone is danger. And so this is why anytime you might go a little bit outside your safe zone, your brain is like, absolutely not, danger, turn around, you can't be in this place, you can't be in this situation even if nothing bad actually happens outside of the zone. So it's super important to recognize when you have safe zones because this can be create a lot of stickiness with panic and agoraphobia. Because if you are limiting and restricting so much and you're continuing to teach your brain over and over again, we can't go outside of this zone, it's dangerous. Your brain really starts to react intensely. And as you might have experienced, this zone can even shrink and you maybe once could go 10 minutes outside of your safe zone and now it's only 5 minutes. So it's really important to recognize if there are some safe zones. Okay, the next one, sign 3, and this is also a big one. You can do big things, but only with conditions. Or you can do lots of things, but only with conditions. So this one surprises a lot of people, but this is definitely a sign of agoraphobia. Like you might be somebody who can take road trips. You can get on an airplane, you can fly, you can go on business trips, you can go on holidays, you can go far from home, but you only do it under certain conditions. Like you have to be with a quote safe person, or you have to have all the safety items with you, or you have to bring that emergency medication just in case. I work with so many people who struggle with severe agoraphobia and they travel. They travel for work, they travel just for leisure. They ride on trains, buses, they go on planes, and a lot of times they won't experience the anxiety and panic and they're okay, but they do it under certain conditions. And I wanna say this clearly, there is no judgment here, like, I lived this, but it's really important to recognize what's happening because your world can stay emotionally small even when you're technically going really far. The issue I always tell my students isn't the distance, it's dependence, and that's where a lot of the stickiness comes into play. And oftentimes, I think we'll do this comparison, right? Of like, oh, I'm not that bad, or I'm really bad. And we're comparing ourselves to other people's situations. But we don't know the inner workings, right? We don't know what's going on emotionally. It can look like somebody is living a really big, beautiful life. Like they're traveling, they have kids, they're doing lots with their kids, they're going on trips, but it's really limited because even when they're doing these things, it has to be under those certain conditions, and they're still experiencing a ton of anxiety and panic at times. It's not like they're doing these things, right, and not feeling any anxiety and panic. I know I can speak for myself. I did a lot of really big things, but it was with a lot of anxiety, a lot of panic attacks, a lot of fear, and just a lot of emotions, which is incredibly hard. So I think this goes back to, right, the definition of agoraphobia. It really is not about not leaving your house, right? There's so much more to it. Okay, sign number 4, and these are all big. This is another big one. Constant scanning and escape planning. And this one was definitely a big one for me and is for so many students that I work with. I say the majority of people that I work with. You are in places that you genuinely want to be in. You're doing things that you genuinely want to do, but you're not even really present while doing them because you are so mentally in your head. You are scanning for exits, you're scanning for escape routes, you're looking for bathrooms, like you're trying to plan how can I get out? Like your brain is throwing all the things at you. Like how fast can we get out of here? Where's the nearest exit? What if I panic here? What does that look like? What am I going to do? And this is so friggin' exhausting. Like, you may even appear like I did, totally fine on the outside. Like, you have it all together, everything's fine. But internally, you're working nonstop just to feel okay. And this one is the hardest thing for so many people because you genuinely feel like I can't control this. Like, I'm not even doing this consciously. Like, my brain is just often scanning, right? It's looking for safety. And this is what happens when you've been living with panic disorder and agoraphobia for a while is your brain does get stuck on that high alert mode and it's constantly trying to make sure you're safe and not in danger even when you're perfectly safe, right? You're like out with friends, you're with people you feel comfortable with, you're in an environment that you know, and your brain is still like, what if? Like, what if you panic? What are you going to do? How are you going to get out? And this is one of the hardest things because you truly feel like you are not present. You are just constantly on edge and feeling that doom and that fear. So, before we go on, because I want to talk about a little bit more on what's actually helpful, let's do a quick recap. So, the first sign is avoidance. The second is safe zones. The third is doing things, even big things, but only with conditions. And the fourth is constant scanning and escape planning. So, before we get to what's helpful, I really want you to hear me on this. Agoraphobia is not a life sentence. Like, I struggled for so long, not because I was weak or because I wasn't trying hard enough or because I wasn't capable, but it was more because I didn't actually understand what was keeping the fear going. Like, I didn't understand these signs. I really didn't truly understand what was contributing to the anxiety continuing to pop up. And I really didn't have the support I needed in order to heal. So I know you might be thinking, like, oh my gosh, do I have agoraphobia? Or I know I have it. This is so bad. This means I'm so bad and it's going to take me a long time to recover. That's not the case at all. I don't want you thinking that this is something that you have to live with. Trust me, I've been there. I was convinced and I truly believed. I thought I would always struggle with panic disorder and agoraphobia. I thought there was no way I was ever going to be able to leave my house, get in cars without carrying that intense fear of panicking, of feeling anxious. But I promise you, this is something that you can heal from. This is something you can overcome. It is not something that you have to continue to carry, but you really have to start to become aware of your actions, your behaviors, and start to take some healthy steps that can really help you to break free of all this fear. So let's now talk about what's helpful because what's helpful isn't always what most people expect. I think most people think recovering from agoraphobia just means learning how to calm anxiety down or how to get rid of it, or just like you got to force yourself, right? You just got to get out of the house and you got to do the things and you just got to feel the fear and push through it. Absolutely not. What's actually helpful is learning how to move through life with anxiety without needing to escape it or fix it or control it or not feel it. Like I always say this, you've got to learn how to have a healthy relationship with anxiety because once you do, that disordered anxiety goes away. That disordered screaming at you, you got to get out all this fear to, okay, there's some anxiety, but it's totally normal, natural anxiety like we all have. So, the first thing that's really helpful is changing your goal. So, I think many people, when they're struggling with panic and agoraphobia, they have this goal of like, I gotta make this stop. And really, the goal isn't how do I make this stop? The goal has to become can I allow myself to feel a little bit of this anxiety, to allow myself to be with it a little bit, even if it feels uncomfortable? Because one of the biggest problems when you're struggling with panic and agoraphobia is this constant fight, this constant resistance to it. And when you are constantly fighting and resisting anxiety, it goes even more into that protection mode. You get even more of it. And so it just becomes this vicious cycle that you feel like you can't get off of. So instead of the goal being, I got to get rid of this, right? I got to make this stop. It's how can I allow myself to feel a little bit of it, to make a little bit more space for it, even though this is really uncomfortable. And when you shift the goal from getting rid of it, like to from feeling calm to carrying it little by little and continuing on living your life anyway, so much changes. Okay, the second thing that's really helpful is learning to let your feelings do what they're going to do. And this is one of the shittiest parts of recovery. And it's something I walk my students through in my Panic to Peace program. It's something we walk through in my community. It's allowing yourself to have feelings. It means letting your emotions come up and rise and come back down. And you really got to teach your brain that, yeah, these sensations, these symptoms are really uncomfortable, but they're actually not dangerous. It means letting your heart race, right? Letting the dizziness be there, letting the panic rise and come back down. It's not forcing yourself, not white knuckling. It's just staying with it a little bit more slowly in ways that feel manageable, enough so that your brain and your nervous system can learn, oh, okay, I didn't actually need to escape, even though all the alarms were ringing, right? Even though everything in my brain was telling me to run. This is a really big one and it's really important because it's a way that you start to drop that resistance to anxiety and actually let yourself build that healthy relationship with it. Okay, the third thing that's helpful is gently reducing conditions. And I stress the word gently. So, recovery is not about removing all of the conditions, like removing all your safety behaviors, getting rid of everything. Like, you can't do these things. They're bad. They're preventing you from healing. Like, absolutely not. That is not the way that I teach. I know that some people do. And I think that it's absolute bullshit. So, recovery is about slowly, gently kindly loosening the rules, the conditions, the limitations, all the things. It means allowing yourself to maybe drive alone sometimes, even a short distance. It means maybe leaving one safety item behind that you don't even really use anyway. You just bring it with you out of habit. It means really letting anxiety get in the passenger seat. Just say, okay, instead of fighting you, instead of trying to get rid of you, I'm going to let you come along and I'm just going to do my thing. It means not picking those areas where you're closest to exits just in case. And all of these small steps really help to teach your brain, I can handle this, right? I can deal with this feeling. We don't need to continue to be on high alert. Of course, these three things really require a lot of awareness of your actions and your behaviors so that you can gently shift these things. And this is a lot of the work that I do with clients and students. So I really want you to know this. For me personally, and for hundreds of my students, recovery didn't happen because we finally felt, quote, ready or capable or even confident, or that we suddenly believed, like, okay, this is possible and I can do this. And so now I'm going to do it. And it also didn't happen because they had this one big moment. Like, I didn't have this one big moment. I am very open, transparent about that. I hear people share this all the time of like, I had this one moment and I was sick of it. And I just, put my foot down and I was like, that's it, I'm recovering. I wish that sounds glorious, but that's often not how a lot of people recover. It's by continuously making that choice over and over again. Like, I don't feel ready. I don't feel capable. I don't feel confident, but I'm going to continue to take the steps that I know are helpful and are going to lead me to where I want to be. Recovery really happens because you learn slowly anxiety is not dangerous. And you learn you are so much more capable than the fear is telling you. I look back on my journey with agoraphobia and I can clearly see I was oftentimes treating myself like I was so, so fragile because I felt so incredibly fragile. If you're feeling this way, I want you to know you're not alone. This makes so much sense. I totally understand it, but you are not fragile. And you've got to show yourself you can handle the feelings of anxiety. I know you don't want to, I know you want them to go away, but you can handle them. You can make space for them, and you can teach your brain that anxiety isn't dangerous. So, if everything I've shared in this episode has resonated with you, I want you to really know you're not broken, you're not weird, you're not behind. Agoraphobia is highly, highly treatable, and your world can expand again, and it will. You are not alone in this, and your life does not have to stay small. I will say this over and over again. One of probably the most helpful thing when it comes to agoraphobia is connection and support. Like, we heal in connection and when we get the right helpful support. So if you've been listening to me and you're thinking, okay, like this sounds so much like me and I really get this. I just don't know what to do. Like, I'm even hearing you on the what's helpful. I kind of have an understanding of it. I've been doing some of it, but it doesn't seem to be working. Like, this is exactly why I created my Panic to Peace program. Panic to Peace is my 10-week live program where I really help you to learn how to respond differently to anxiety and panic. And I help you to gently face the places and situations you've been avoiding. And I help you to reduce those safety behaviors and those conditions at your own pace. And most importantly, I help you to rebuild the trust in yourself and your nervous system. This is the work that helped me to recover. and it's the work that I've guided thousands of people through over the years. So if you're wanting support, structure, and accountability while you practice what we've talked about today, you can learn all the things about Panic to Peace in the show notes. And whether or not you ever join me or not, please know this: you are far more capable than anxiety is telling you, and your life does not have to stay small. I know that anxiety wants to convince you of all the things, like you're an exception, you've been struggling too long, you're too far gone, you're too broken, there's a genetic predisposition, blah, 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 all the things. It's just such bullshit. Like, you deserve to live a big and beautiful life, and you are so freaking capable of it. And you know what I'm going to say? You just have to keep taking those healthy steps. So until next time, my friend, keep taking healthy action. I hope you loved this episode of A Healthy Push. If you have, I'd be so grateful if you could leave me a rating and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. This helps people to find the show and get the support they need. And if you know someone who could use a little push, be sure to share this episode with them. And for even more support, head over to ahealthypush.com for show notes and loads of tips, tools, and inspiration to help you on your recovery journey. I'll see you next week.